Right, let's talk Arsenal.
Yes, please. I've got to be honest with you. You two really know your stuff. And when we were doing that one that's like a talking other clubs, I panicked. Because you get these comments and they go, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to Liverpool. And I don't watch every Liverpool game. I was like, oh, fucking hell. But Arsenal, I feel more confident.
Well, you're safe here now. Right. So let's talk about Arsenal. And I wanted to get you guys together because I always think football is a microcosm of society. And I think within that microcosm of society, then as someone who's been in the sort of online space since 2015,
wow,
when it comes to football stuff, Arsenal is its own island within that. And both of you are kind of in it, but also I think have an outside perspective of it, but are also two fans that go and watch Arsenal. So I think there's the team, and I want to talk about Arsenal on the pitch and as they strive for that Premier League title. And Clive, I've been lucky enough to sort of sit and chat with you a couple of times, and you've always kind of said Arsenal, you find your level is one of yours.
Yeah.
And Arsenal are in the level that they're at right now is a team that is top of the league, that won their Champions League group, that is still in the FA Cup, that is in an EFL Cup final, and it's a really, really good place. Yet, the conversation around Arsenal confuses me a little bit. And one of my phrases, which I've stolen from someone, is two things can be true.
Yeah.
And so that's what this podcast is kind of hopefully going to be about, or this conversation. First thing I'll say is, are you enjoying this season, Jacob? Let's start open.
I am. I'm enjoying my time at the stadium. I'm enjoying watching the football, and we can talk about that style of play thing later on, and I'll be careful of my language, but I think there's an awful lot of bollocks spoken about that. I am enjoying this season. I think what I'm trying to do is let my own thoughts be my own thoughts about Arsenal, and not let outside noise affect how I enjoy my team, because we're very good, as you've reminded us just then, and I think we do need reminding sometimes. We 8 from 8 in the Champions League, top of the Premier League. We're into the final of the Carabao, and we're still in the FA Cup. We are on for a quadruple, which I don't mind reminding myself every now and then. But I also think this is the first time that Arsenal have been this force in what I would call the content era. The last time Arsenal were this good, there was no overlap, fan debate, Gary Neville, 9 podcasts a week, everyone need... And I was talking to you before this podcast, James, about how I was so excited to do this podcast, because this is, in my opinion, I think football content has forked in 2 different directions now. I think there's lovely, calm, thoughtful conversations about the game that can be quite analytical about approach and tactics. And then there's headline, grabby, short social clip media, and neither is good nor bad. There is clearly an audience for both, but I think Arsenal exists as a very different beast in those 2 forms. I think when people want to be thoughtful and sit down and look at Arsenal, I think people are very appreciative of what is going on at a club that has got huge numbers of academy players playing in their squad, whilst being very successful, whilst being pioneers tactically. Whereas if you want to do it as short form headliney stuff, you can call us boring. You can call the manager annoying. You could, and I'm old enough to remember the last time we were good, and people weren't massively appreciative of us then. We were French. We were. I remember the Invincibles. We were rough. We were horrible. We were indisciplined. It's not new, and this isn't me saying, poor Arsenal, we're the victims of a media attack. I think there are 2 very separate forms of media who speak about Arsenal very differently. Am I enjoying Arsenal at the moment? Yes, because I'm choosing the conversations I listen to about Arsenal, and I'm trying to block out the noise.
That's fascinating. Do you, in terms of that, like that media stuff, I guess the media's changed, doesn't it? We've literally just taken a break, and we've just bumped into a couple of your friends who are comedians, and you were talking about like Instagram clips and things like that, which is a sort of necessary demand of you and your world, or me, in terms of making a podcast that's an hour and something long, but trying to get it out to the world. I was watching this thing the other day about content and podcasts and things like that, and they were saying that a podcast is actually a sort of Instagram medium. because in terms of the awareness and the selling of your product, and a lot of people have a podcast these days, those clips are a great way of doing it, as opposed to just one title and hoping that someone's got an hour when they see there's an hour there to watch it, or to go and see your stand-up or listen to your podcast, Clive. So that the sort of necessary evil within the media, that kind of imparts itself on us. And then...
Well, not just us, on the TV channels as well. CBS Golazo, which I'm a show I enjoy, that's built for clips.
Yeah, yes, because
that's Mika Richards and Jamie Carragher having a laugh with Thierry Henry and Kate Abdo with the hope of getting 30 seconds of funny. Jamie Carragher can drive me mad on that show. Whereas when he does Monday Night Football and he's moving bits and showing me what our defenders do,
yeah.
I love it. So it's very.
So the navigating of this bombardment of which we've just discussed. To go back to the original question. Are you enjoying this season, Clive?
I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying it because I'm a football man first and foremost, and I can see our football's changed. And from almost the earliest games, I can see that we're trying to do different things. And I think that was needed, because I felt last year we got a bit stuck in some of our systems and it was needed to change. And I love the direction that we've gone. We've gone for depth rather than star quality. So we bought a bench basically, plus that's one starter maybe two. And we're now in a situation where we can talk about 4 competitions. No one ever wins a quadruple, but we can talk about it. Because when we have an injury in the warm-up at Leeds, Bukayo Saka goes down, we're bringing on Noni Madueke, whereas last year we were bringing on Raheem Sterling, who's in the autumn of his career. And that's the big difference. And when you can do that change, then that same player who comes in within 15 minutes of the kickoff, then scores and sets up a goal, that's the difference that we have. And I think... But also stylistically, we've definitely changed how we play. So, and I do feel that potentially we're being miscast, but that's okay.
Well, I think that's interesting, and that mixes and marries with what you're saying there, which I hadn't really thought about. Which was, again, when it comes to like the headlines and the choice of those headlines, you're right in terms of the building of the squad. Arsenal, I think I talk about Arsenal a lot when you're seeing other clubs in a bit of a mess and saying how you should go about it. But in this sort of latest chapter, it is interesting that you've gone, like you say, you've gone for depth instead of a Cherky or a Wirtz or those kind of players. So is that something that people are missing here when it comes to your team?
We got an Eze as well.
That's true. Yeah, maybe. You're right. I'm not seeing him. I guess that's maybe why I missed out on him there.
I think we're being miscast as a physical set-piece team that can only score in certain ways, when actually where I think football is going is where you have many, many games within a game, and our biggest trick is our adapting to different systems, to different approaches. So I'll just give you an example, right? So we're leading 3-2 against Chelsea. They turn up. You think, well, actually they're going to come on to us. We pick 3 sprinty forwards, try and get in behind them. Chelsea pick a back 5, sit there and wait for us to make a mistake by passing into the middle. So what do? Maybe last year we'd have passed into the middle, conceded, maybe lost that game. What do we do this year? We say, okay, we see what you're doing. We're going to knock it back the back a little bit. We're going to go we're going to play low risk passes, but actually we're going to wait until you come out. And when you come out, we will take you, and we did in that game and won the game. I think the adaptation to what's on offer. And it's about, I heard a coach call, I said it on my podcast last week, I'm going to repeat it, so apologies for those who heard this before, but I think it's really important. There's a LA Rams coach called Sean McVay, outstanding coach, could be the best NFL coach out there. And he speaks about coaching for capability and capacity. Capability is when you tell someone what to do, pattern play, blah, blah, blah. We do this, in this scenario, do this in that scenario. But when you coach for capacity, you coach for solutioning, for change. How do you manage something that's different in front of you? Like the Chelsea game, what do you do? And the analogy that he gave was like, say you're on a battlefield in a tank. You're in a tank and you've got 20 soldiers, and you train those soldiers to get to the battlefield, 10 get out one side, 10 get out the other side. Brilliant, that's capability. When you go to the battlefield on another day and there's gunfire coming from one side, do I send my 10 out that side, then we lose half your men? Or do I adapt to what the situation is and manage that change and 20 get out the other side. And that is what I think Arteta's doing. He's coaching for capacity. Our ability to see the game that's on offer and deliver against that is our number one trick. And it's quite interesting. Leeds pressed onto us. We then break them open and we score. Villa press onto us. We break them on and we score. What do teams do? Teams realise they're trying to attack us, not us. They're trying to attack our psychology. Why? Because physically we're in shape. Organisation, we're in shape. What's our weakness? Our weakness is our psychology. If we can drag you into deep water like Liam Messina tried to do, let's see if they crack. Right? So at this moment in time, we're not really cracking that much. We've only lost 3 games out of the 38, whatever it is so far. So I do think we're being miscast. IQ is our trick, not physicality, intelligence to the rhythm of a football match.
That said, so I agree, and I think Arsenal have got to be wildly unlucky not to win the league this year, which I can kind of get on to. But in terms of sort of the miscasting and just trying to get to kind of the truth in this, they generally do have the answers. We're seeing that, right? But the sort of critique that's been put at them at Arsenal this season has been these handbrake comments in September after the 1-1 draw with Man City, the 3-2 loss against Man United, where again it felt like it was kind of going from side to side and not playing in a different way, or is it a specific way that would suit my palate? Maybe that's part of this. And with that defeat against Man United, I think the way that Man United got their goals from, let's say, fortunate means in the sense of like great goals from outside the box, but in terms of the sort of bravery, or for want of a better word, with the ball that they kind of showed there seemed a really, really loud reaction to that, which, as you know, people in social media, you then see that reaction and the conversation from that afterwards. Like, why was that reaction so loud by some parts of the Arsenal fan base and then everyone else, which is obviously they just sort of chew on the remains?
Well, no. I won't.
Go on.
If I sound like I'm disagreeing with you, James, I'm disagreeing to a wider narrative. I've been told we're boring in our approach quite a lot this season. I don't know how bored you felt, Clive. I haven't felt bored. I don't watch an Arsenal team who turn up and just hoof the ball away, who give up possession. We don't sit in low blocks. The Man City game that you reference, we put them in a low block. We dominate the ball. To Clive's point, I think a lot of what we do, and I've seen this an awful lot this season at the Emirates, is first half, I feel like we can keep the ball, we can dominate territory, whilst we work out what we want to do to a team. Sunderland was a great example of the weekend just gone. I can't remember who went down injured. The players went over to Arteta. Literally a minute or so later, Declan Rice takes a shot from outside the box. 5 minutes later, Zubimendi does the same shot from outside the box from a fairly similar position. The ball goes in the back of the net. While we're working out exactly how we're going to take a team apart, we're stable. But stable isn't sitting in a block and hoofing it away. Yeah. Stable is dominating the ball, dominating territory, and pushing teams back. When did that become boring? When did that become defensive football? Defensive football, as I understand it, is sitting in a block, giving up territory, giving up possession, and not being proactive in dominating a game.
So I think this is what's really interesting, and that's why I think there is this explosion here. So I'm pleased you said what you said there, because I find the handbrake on phrase fascinating in all of this, because I don't think there had to be different language, and language in everything is really interesting, but in football in particular, I think when we can find, or when you look at what's being said, this handbrake on-off thing that kind of people are putting in there. I think, I'll be honest, I find Arsenal at times, because they're good, difficult to watch, and because they're doing what I feel like is probably the most efficient way of trying to break down a team, that for me as a neutral is less enjoyable to watch, because you want that spark and variety.
Well, whilst Gabriel and Saliba are basically playing on the edge of someone else's penalty area, that's why we've got a handbrake on. I don't know. I find the language very difficult.
It's just sport.
Scrabbling, though, isn't it?
It's just sport.
The handbrake on is the scrabbling. It's a phrase where people are scrabbling because you are dominant. Yeah. But because, I think, surely, I don't think I'm wrong in saying this, is that ability at times to to get that central access is something that people are desperate to see.
Right, let's go. Now you got me going, James. you mentioned the word central access. Now, I think sometimes what fits your eye. I like tennis, right? So if you ask me, do I like Andy Murray or do I like Djokovic? Andy Murray, I liked him. You know why? He had a few failings about him, but he's really good on the eye. I liked him. Yeah. Djokovic was a little bit efficient. He never seemed to miss a shot. You know, maybe in this case we are Djokovic because we are complete.
Yes.
And so we may not be the most popular, but at some point you might have to respect us because we might actually win something. And then what's going to happen? I think that fear of us maybe getting to over the line is driving some of the exterior.
Do you think there's a lack of respect?
Until you win, I don't think you can demand respect. You know, I'm comfortable. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell people, oh, I'm worried everyone doesn't like us. I'm not bothered. Honestly, I'm not. I really enjoy the football and how we're adapting. And so you mentioned central access. I've got to hold you here now, right? So this is one of the big things. There's two things that have changed from last season to this season. We are at 30,000 foot. I'll keep it summarising for the non-Arsenal people. We are trying to get people in unsettled defences. So we are being a little bit more direct. Last year I felt we'd get into our rest defence before we attacked. Everyone knew where we were going. We created low block games for ourselves, you know, by our style and our pace of pass. But of course it gets us the best defence, but you don't win anything that way, right? So you have to score more goals. The second thing I think we've done this season, rather than playing in wide triangles and threes, we're playing a lot more in pairs, right? So before last season, we had a single six, two centre-backs, Rice, Odegaard, you know the drill, James, Rice, Odegaard out there with your winger, blah, 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 and full-backs overlapping, centre-forward, and a little dot in the middle, completely isolated, and everyone saying, why don't you score 30 goals? Yeah. Right? So this year, we're playing a lot more in pairs, right? So Timber Saka pair, Calafiori Trossard, Rice Supermendi, two centre-backs as a pair. But the key difference has been the 9 and the 10 in recent weeks. That is the key difference. And what that drives, when you see somebody with a presence in that central zone, what does that drive, James? Central access, right? Central access, right? Because all of a sudden you can find Kai Havertz down the middle. Yeah. And when someone kicks him in the back of his legs, he doesn't fall over. He can take it. You can find Eze in the middle, you know, because he's strong and he can turn out of pressure and move the ball. And I think this reversion from 3s to 2s, we call it Arsenal 1.0 to 2.0 this season, has been the big difference. And if anything, our rough patch was when we went back to 3s.
That was going to be the next point.
Right?
Yeah, sorry.
We went back to 3s. Odegaard came back in and we started to do the wide triangle things, which is great. But when you lose it, we expose the middle, transition. Villa was one of those games, for example. And that's just it. That evolution, evolution has been significant for me. And that gives me a confidence that we can not just attack down the right, but occasionally attack down the middle, and definitely Calafiori plays attack down the left as well. So that diversity of tactical play has been the big difference from last year to this difference, along with the bench and the directness. And that's the key.
Go on, man, you want to say something?
There's conversations happening somewhat above my skill grade, and I'm just listening.
No, you're absolutely not.
But do you see it? Do you see it from afar, James? Because you're someone that watches and analyses.
But last time I saw Clive, we did something for Sky, didn't we? And I said they've got to get Eze. I think you need Eze because you need to be, if you're defending against someone, or you've got a block, you have to explode the block. Yeah. Or you have to have the fear that you might explode the block.
Threat.
So my issue with Odegaard, and I need to watch him. Which is a bit nerdy because someone's saying that like for Norway, he's like very free and like he's like in them. Odegaard is just, it feels like he's changed or something. Arsenal aren't better, in my opinion, when he's playing in the team. And so that I was screaming for Eze then. And once he got in there, in the game against Liverpool, for example, you were miles better once, a player that's happy to stand in there. Yeah. I just love, I like those players because I just think they explode the game a little bit. So I think whenever the need to find a negative about Arsenal comes, it's generally generally came in a game against Liverpool where Szoboszlai scored from like 60 yards or whatever, right? And you still couldn't knock the door down. Yeah. Or the game against Man United, who Man United had that bit of like fearlessness, but they were still, hanging in there. And again, it felt like there wasn't the language for people to go break it down a better way. Yeah. They weren't utilising that language. And when you see someone like Eze on the bench and then coming on and still him even peeling outside of that block, then I was kind of like, yeah, I want to see a little bit more.
I mean, that is, we talk about just getting in the centre of the pitch and receiving the ball. It's not the easiest thing in football, is it? There's a reason teams go down the side so often. But it's been interesting since Kai Havertz has come back because we've seen him playing just off of a number 9 an awful lot. Now, I started this season thinking Kai's our 9, he's our striker. That Gyokeres will have to get the striking position off Kai. And then and I think it's very interesting. When did we buy Eze? It was when Kai went down. And I remember at the time thinking, that's funny because I see Kai as our 9 and now we're buying this player who I'd imagine we're going to play as a left winger. Whereas when you think about it now, that we lost a second striker to an injury and bought another player who, as you describe, has predominantly played as that kind of 10, almost alternated with Marino sometimes. They take it in turns. It makes a bit more sense. And in terms of...
it's a great option, isn't it?
It's a great option. And the Odegaard thing, I think, is fascinating because he's become a bit of a lightning rod for a lot of fan criticism. And I completely agree with a lot of it. And I think Carragher this time last year was saying he's not operating inside a block enough anymore. He's coming outside, he's coming deep, he's going to the right. I've got a lot of theories about that. I think sometimes we expect a midfielder to be the same midfielder for 10 years of their career, whereas when you look at some of the best midfielders in Europe over the past 15 years, they will start as a 10, become a 6 as they get older, move into an 8, sometimes go wide. I think with Odegaard, he's had a lot of injuries over the last year and a half. He's got a big campaign with Norway in the summer, and I do wonder how willing he is to go in there, ride challenges, get kicked. I don't think you can discount that's on a player's mind when they've had so many injuries where they've fallen on a shoulder, got kicked on an ankle. I do think Arsenal look a completely different team when we have a player in that playing off of a striker, like a Kai Havertz, who you can find, be it going long from Raya, be it to his feet. And I said this on the podcast that I do this fairly recently. I think with Kai Havertz in that position, whether he's 9, 10, doesn't matter. I think Arsenal look like a 90-plus point team.
I agree with you.
And I think when we don't have someone like... Even Marino can do it, by the way. And I think also there's been lots of times this season we've looked a much better team when Mikel Marino's been in the side. When you don't have that reference point in the middle of the pitch, that's when I think we start looking like an 80, 85-point team. I
think that the Havertz thing... When you watch games, sometimes you're just sort of like watching it, right? And then sometimes you're like, ooh... I hadn't really thought, like, sort of out of sight, out of mind a little bit. I think Havertz coming back in, it was definitely watching the last couple of games and watching the Sunderland game, which we're doing for the Premier League this week. He was just like, oh, like, because in the first minute or so, the Sunderland game, first of all, I think 20 seconds into the game, Trossard's on the right-hand side. And he puts a cross in for Havertz. And then after about 2 minutes, we're really fortunate with the Prem. We were able to see the sort of tactical camera.
There's a big chance, that one, by the way. That Havertz.
Yeah, it was. Which right, and this is the thing, right? This is the whole point of this podcast is, and it's often the same answer with me, is that you can spin it however you want. If that's in the 88th minute, and the ball goes to Havertz, you go, he's just not a goal scorer. And I think I've done that video. Sure, I think it was Bayern Munich a couple of years ago. But then 2 minutes later, there was a moment where I think, well, first of all, Trossard went all the way to the edge of the box when Raya had it, I think, to pick up the ball. And then there was another instance where Havertz went, and then Madueke then went inside, and Havertz was supposed to be one of these, the front two really. Havertz then went over and played essentially right back because Timber had moved up to where Madueke was. So the rotations within it is so, the intelligence of the team is
for a boring, rigid team. We move around a lot, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's again, in terms of the two things can be true thing. It is so high IQ.
Yeah.
But to that point, when it then becomes base, as a game of football can be sometimes, that's again where if the numbers on the top left or the top right, whatever, of the screen don't say this team is winning and this team is losing and Arsenal are the team that are winning, when you can't give a real logical reason for it to be right, that's when you need the spark and the the ingenuity. That's when people start talking about the handbrake and all those things.
It'd be interesting to see, sometimes we default to being I think we're a very good off the ball team, right? So we can sometimes default to it, right? So we can do that. I know we can. I definitely felt the anxiety when Manchester United came there. I felt the anxiety at 1-0 up.
Talk to me about that then. So, because I think that felt like and again, people just screaming and trying to find it, trying to drag Arsenal down because there's such a big conversation. They're going to get you the clicks that you need.
I think at times you try and keep the outside noise down, but it's very, very difficult, right? And suddenly, when we do well and we beat all these teams and everyone says we're going to win the quadruple, we've been crowned world champions already when we've not got a trophy, sometimes your psychology goes, it changes to what you could lose rather than what you can win. And I think when we won up against Manchester United, I felt that came into the fore. And we were anxious and it cost us. But again, in that game, we had Jesus up front and we didn't have a physical reference point. And even on the first goal we conceded, it's not Jesus' fault. I'm just saying to you, sometimes when you got those reference points there to hit, you can go to them, right? So basically when Saliba has the ball at the back of the team, he looks up, no one's showing. Zubimendi drops out the block to receive it because he's brave. They have a bit of passy between each other. And next minute, Mbeumo says, thanks very much, bottom corner. Right? So hold on, we've done that to ourselves. And I think we were anxious. You've got to accept it. You can't win every game. I'm not sitting there saying Arsenal are perfect. We were anxious that day, but I felt we needed that defeat. If we'd have drawn that game and then drew at Leeds, we'd have been 1 point worse off, right? So we need that defeat for absolute clarity to say, let's turn this volume down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's remind ourselves where we are, what we're trying to achieve, and the opportunities that are ahead of us rather than what you could lose. So that moment for me was a turning point. That week was a turning point. And since then, 3 games on the trot. So
I've got Balogun asked for questions for the guys. Balogun said, what's been the key changes to Arsenal's way of playing since the loss to Man United, which we'll definitely answer. Just as were you in the stadium for that game, the Man United Arsenal game?
Yeah.
So what did you think about? Because that's the one thing I can't speak to it. Like when you're in there and you're always in there and you've been in there when it was, in other dark periods when and any fan base, it happens, right? You have moments where it's just, it's not really a nice place right now. I think what shocked me, I'll be honest, was you're top of the league. So I heard on the telly, boos. And
at the end of the game.
Yeah. On the telly.
It was grumbles. It was like
right.
That. It wasn't.
So what, I mean, for the reality of the situation, can you paint that, what was it like in there?
We're a very singular example of a fan base in the sense that if we were to finish second this season, we'd be the first team to do so. And we're doing that in an era where there's more media and social media clips.
Would you be the first team to do?
Four times.
Four times.
Sorry. If we finish second in the Premier League 4 times, yeah. If we finish second in the Premier League, that'd be the first time we've done it. And it's we've got Patrice Evra doing memes about how we're like Netflix. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's impossible for that to not sink into the fan base and maybe into the players a little bit. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I feel like we've conceded a lot of goals when we're 1-0 up this season. I don't know what that is. And I do think it might disappear when Arsenal, and I will say when rather than if, when we do it, when we win a Premier League, when we win a Champions League. I think both the fans and the players will suddenly feel a bit differently and maybe have that little bit more conviction. I don't know if you feel this, Clive. I sometimes feel like we're most vulnerable when we go a goal up.
Well, I feel vulnerable every second of every game I'm watching them. But yeah, there's been occurrences of that. Hey, look, we haven't done this before. We haven't done it before. Yeah. We haven't done it for a long time. And so everything that we're feeling is completely natural.
Do you know what I think people are missing though? Is and I get why the fan base is there. My personal view, and if it was just grumbles, it was just grumbles. But from what I heard, I went, you can't, you're top of the unwritten rule of football. If you're top of the league, you can't boo your team. Come on, you can't
boo your team.
To stick up for that fan base, I think they were booing a result more so than their team. There was no one saying, get off the pitch, I don't want to see you next week, I'm sick of this manager. I think it was booing a result, if anyone was booing.
Right. But what I would say, and I think I've seen it throughout the season, is actually the positive of the finishing second the last few years. Because that group in the games against Fulham away or in the response games that we've seen in the last couple of, like, in the week when it was all like, it's everywhere, and I do a few podcasts as well, so I end up talking about Arsenal, and I do a podcast with a Spurs fan who's loving every second of it when anything goes awry.
I know that guy.
So you're in that space. So you've got to I've got to get through that podcast as well. But I always kind of thought, if I'm that player and you're good, you're the best, you've been the best team, if you do the sort of total points over the last 3 seasons, they probably are top, I would imagine, or right up there. Yeah. And I'm Declan Rice, and I'm 20. What is he? 27, and I'm just like he's like a horse out there. Like when it comes to that next game, I wouldn't have fear. I'd be like, there's such energy for those games, I would imagine, and I feel like we've seen that. I think you've seen that in the Leeds game. We've seen it in the Sunderland game. So in terms of the key changes to Arsenal, in terms of how they're playing, I think you're right. I think it's absolutely refocused on that defeat. And again, if you really break down that defeat, it was some brilliance, I think, at times from Man United. On the pitch, just to get back to the Havertz thing, Havertz, both sort of, him being a bit of a hybrid that allows a lot of the other hybrid players to be even more hybrid is great in terms of working your way through the thirds. But the other thing I think that's interesting here is that he was on the right-hand side a lot more than what we've seen with Kai Havertz at times, of him being on the left-hand side, kind of picking up the ball. Is that just one of the hands that Arteta can play by having him and Jesus starting? Because Jesus might drift over to that side, Trossard can then come into a bit more of a central area. Is that the reason behind that? Or if he's playing with Gyokeres, what will be the difference between him and Jesus and him and Gyokeres?
Well, Gyokeres, it's all 1+1 split when they play. With Jesus, it's a bit like that.
Okay.
Jesus naturally wants to go to the left and Havertz naturally wants to go to the right. I'm not going to speak, they do that all the time, but it's more something that we've seen before. And they've played together before. And the key for me is having those points where you can hit and having a partnership there. I think where football is heading, James, another where it's heading again. Because everyone wants you to play outside their shape, right? So you get 4-4-2 blocks. Everyone wants you to play outside your shape. So when you do get inside the block from the sides and you connect, do you want it to go to a midfielder or do you want it to go to a second striker or a striker? And the birth of the second striker is coming back. 4-4-2 is coming back. 4-2-4 is coming back. Having proximity in striking areas, because you don't get to that zone very often. So when you get there, players like Semenyo, Julian Alvarez, Krupi, those players that can't lead the line on their own. Marmoush, not physically enough to lead the line on their own. But, mate, around those spaces there, they've got rockets in their boots and they're really accurate in their shooting. And the weekend is a classic example where the space is in football. As the season goes on, that will get more and more dense. There'll be more density, more barricade in the box because people are going to care about results and they're going to drop in. And where's the space going to be? On the edge of the area. And you said it earlier, but it's going to happen again. And edge of area shooting. Villa's already shown what you can do with that, right? So now people are cutting onto them, they're pressing out, right? So, but that's where it's going to be. And that is the next phase. So second strikers are coming back. And I don't blame, because everyone now is midfielder. Why do you need an ex-midfielder? You've got Timber, you've got Calafiori, you've got Rice Zubimendi. Do I need another midfielder in there? They all can look after the ball and combine and carry and drive and cross. They're all court players. So when I get to those areas, I want people to do the special thing. To kick it in that net. So that's where we're going to be going.
To come back to your point about Kai drifting to the right-hand side, I think a big part of that is also that double pivot that's behind him now. Yeah. When we've seen Kai Havertz play in midfield before, it's been that kind of left 8 when there's been a right 8 in Ødegaard and there's been a single pivot behind them. As Clive says, we're seeing far fewer of these single pivots now, and I think that double pivot at Arsenal, I can't remember if it was last season or the season prior where Rice was playing so high up. It was the season where he got sent off at Brighton. Yeah, because he was up there, wasn't he?
He had the highest average position in the team. And I said to myself, we did not sign him to be the highest average position player. No chance. He got sent off by the corner flag right underneath me. I was fuming. I'm still fuming about it.
But we used to see Zinchenko inverting into that position next to whoever was playing as a lone pivot for us. Now we've got that platform, that double pivot. And I think in terms of doing that second striker thing of your... third midfielder, your 10 being closer to your striker, that only works when you've got that double pivot. And I really think that Zubimendi-Rice thing, that's the best in the league for me.
Oh,
and
mate,
I think when you compare what Arsenal were last season to what they are now, that is the answer. And I think also this is to a wider conversation of like, what are Arsenal's approach? What are our tactics? I don't know whether you'd agree with this and whether this just completely disrupts what we're trying to have a conversation about on this podcast. I think there's so much focus on what did the manager tell them to do? Did the manager tell the left? I've never played football at that level. Footballers do what footballers do, right? And I've heard people say, God, Arsenal was so much more attractive to watch in 22-23 compared to now. It's like, well, who had the ball for Arsenal in 22-23? We had little lightweight Zinchenko passing to little Ødegaard, up to little Jesus, right? Yeah. Now, it's big old Saliba, up to big Declan Rice. It's not all about, is Arteta making us brilliant? It's no. Who's got the ball at their feet and what do they do?
Also the way that teams defend as well, right? Like if you think of, when you watch Arsenal play,
we face different blocks now.
Well, yeah, or like if everyone's going to go man to man, you got to win your duels,
right?
So if you're all 6'2", and you can all like run 15k,
but to come back to better position, to come back to that double pivot thing. Rice and Zubimendi now, and I'll be honest, I didn't watch loads of Zubimendi last season. I think there was one game against Man United he played for Sociedad. I was scared. What we've got, I didn't expect this, and I think it shows you what we used to have in that single pivot last season was a player who just wasn't moving around the pitch. In Thomas Partey, he was at the end of his career, he just wasn't moving, and that meant Rice had to go everywhere. Whereas now the two of them, tell me which one's a 6 and which one's an 8, or which one's higher, which one's lower. They do whatever. They do whatever the game needs them to do. I've watched Zubimendi run past Ødegaard to finish.
He scored like 4 or 5 goals.
Right. Yeah. And that is, for me, where Arsenal have evolved this season, is those two players now. And that's why you're saying, I don't really want Ødegaard drifting outside of blocks, taking the ball off centre-backs. Piss off.
Let
them do it.
Yeah.
Like you've got the two best pivot players in the world. Get out of there and go and score some goals.
I said this on a video with Rory last week, and I'm sure we had this conversation. We were talking about Declan Rice, and I think that it's not even a question mark. It was just, there's more in there.
Yeah.
Like, and I think what I said to Rory last week was like, if you've got a player who can be 2 players, that means you can have 12 players. Let them do it. And I think that's the Zubimendi Declan Rice thing. You've got that, and Zubimendi is actually far more complete than I kind of sort of had him for. I thought he might just sit there a little bit more, but by not doing that, I think it's better for the
far
team.
More physical.
So what's really annoying is that's the sort of second striker of the 4-4-2 thing. I never do QPR videos because I'm a jinx of them. But we've been basically playing 4-4-2 for the bulk of the season. And when Haaland signed Man City signed Marmoush last year, I had the same thought that like it has to be that way now because the way teams are able to kind of keep the ball and allow themselves to kind of rotate a lot of the time. And that's why I think what's good here is you've got such defensive stability there. But from an attacking point of view, I think there will be games when it comes to that pair up top. It's a great point with Havertz. There'll be games when you want Havertz and Gyokeres. There'll be games where you want Havertz and Jesus. There'll be games where you want Eze and Havertz. I think in that.
And Ødegaard. I'm sorry, I'm going to stick up for him. There will be games where you need someone to pick a lock. You need someone to play a 5-yard pass that can get it through. And he came on against Leeds, and I was really impressed with what he did. Really I'm not writing that player off. He scored 15 Premier League goals without one of them being a penalty. 3 years ago. True. He's got it. He'll come back.
I think Ødegaard's got the message. And the reason why I think he's got the message, against JaackMaate, he had 2 headers in the box. And that means he's staying central. That means the message has got through. I need to provide support to the 9. And so it's just about evolution and adapting. When Zubimendi and Rice are there now, they're doing all the jobs. And when they don't do it, Timber does the jobs and Calafiori does the job. So now I need to change my job. If I want to come back in and do what I used to do, the team has evolved. They no longer need me to do that. They need me to be on the edge of the team with my pretty feet and get my shots off. That's what I need him to do. And he will adapt. He will adapt. And if that doesn't suit him anymore at this stage of his career, there'll be a change there. But at this moment in time, this guy's got mesmerising feet. And there are occasions when we're 1-0 up and I'm thinking, can someone just get on the ball and put it in their pocket so I don't have to see it? And I'll be searching for him, you know? And this is it, having the game. But I wanted to make sure that in my mind, I didn't want us to just play him all the time because he's our skipper. Play him when the game requires it.
Yeah.
And that's where another evolution for Arsenal. The squad is telling you what we're trying to do. I don't care who starts, as long as the game plan that we have suits the players that we've chosen. You know? And if we get it wrong, we adapt, either by making change or we adapt on the fly. Back to what I said earlier on, the biggest trick of this team is its IQ and how it adapts to what the opposition is doing, rather than just the physicality and the set pieces.
I think that's something Pep's had through the years, is like, how do you put it? Like competition without conflict. Like they know they're going to play, as a club, they're going to play 60, 70 games. And I think that's where Arsenal are as well. Like, you know, that game against Sunderland have a full week to get ready for that, obviously. Yeah. And Arsenal, you know, they're playing cup semi-finals in the middle of all of it, and they still look really, really strong. Victor Gyokeres was obviously the striker that came in the summer. Such a good point about Eze getting bought in after Kai Havertz went down. Yeah, it's fast. I hadn't even thought about that little explosion in my head. He's now got, I think it's 7 of his 8 Premier League goals. So 6 or 7, sorry. Because I know Opta changed their email. I sent it. They gave us this stat. Thank you, Opta. Have come against newly promoted sides, while the Swede has scored in back-to-back league games as an Arsenal player for the first time. 2 things can be true. What are our feelings on Gyokeres? The one ripple effect I wonder, because I think Arteta might have touched on it, and there's also, I think there's a ripple effect with Arteta looking at maybe women's football, maybe the England team in the Euros in terms of the sort of the finishers, and I think there's a little angle on that which would be nice to talk about. But with Gyokeres and the big money signing and the struggles that have kind of felt like have been there, but then him doing well in terms of coming off the bench. Has he kind of done himself in there a little bit, do you think, between now and the end of the season? Because I think you get to this point in the season, the reason I say it is you get to this point in the season and you start to have a little settle, I think. Like, the great Man City teams, there'll be people coming in and out, and then it gets to about March, you kind of know who you are and who you want to be playing, generally, I think. Yeah. Do you think Arteta will do that? Do you think Gyokeres, if you've got Havertz kind of fit and able, that it's him and Jesus now? How do you see it?
You mentioned who he scores against. I think what's interesting is when he scores. And what's left out of that is he scored at the San Siro against a very good Inter Milan team. But when is it? It's when the game's open. Arteta said it himself after the Sunderland game at the weekend. The game has opened up. There's green grass to run into. He's very similar to Martinelli, in my opinion. I don't want to see those guys banging their heads against a wall, against low blocks in the first hour of a game. What's the point? Let the technical players do that. Let them come on when there's somewhere to run. And I don't know about you, Clive. I think he's always looked better this season when games are a bit more open.
I think he's looked better initially away from home. I think we needed that direction that he provides, because when you've got someone that has a strong primary skill, which is his movement and robustness, shall we say, to move into channels, not so he wins all the races, but he gives us direction. Away from home, that's really good. Newcastle gave us a great example of what we can do. And then with him and Eze up front together, I thought it was really, really good. With Gyokeres, it's about, sometimes with a player, it's about how they walk into the room. He walked into the room with Arsenal and everyone saying, you need a centre forward. We finally get a centre forward. And it's like, okay, he's now going to fix all of your problems, right? So on the first game of the season, we lose Havertz. And so he would have been introduced more like Sesko's being introduced off the bench. Occasionally starts the game, but he was forced to play a lot of football till he broke down. So I think the expectation on him was to be the man. Mate, he cost 55 million quid plus change. Well, every Premier League player costs 50 million quid these days. So it wasn't like a massive investment for us. I think with him, I did see him play against Arsenal in Portugal, Sporting Lisbon. And I saw him and I felt his presence and I felt his speed. So when you have that first impression of somebody, it's like, okay, he's quite good. A bit raw, a bit basic on his runs, but he's definitely got speed and power. So when he came to Arsenal, I didn't see that. Do I throw that away or say, actually, it's still there, but he's just lost, it's mislaid, maybe overplayed, maybe not quite fit with no pre-season. And I held on to it. And at the weekend, he was warming up, and I looked down from my seat, he's warming up. I thought, who's that? It's like, Gyokeres. I thought, he looks fit, he looks slimmer, he looks like really in good shape. And he came on, and he just ripped that game open. So he's taken just 2 things, fitness and health, also proximity of the 10 behind him, whoever that is. And all of his best games, you check it out, Newcastle, Burnley, away from home, Eze's right near him, a true 10, a true partner. And in this game, obviously last week, Havertz was close to him. In this game, he comes into the game and he's just got a bit of proximity. You're right about Martinelli. Martinelli is now diving off the sides from the right-hand side and becoming that second option. And they are now flooding that zone, mate, your favourite zone. They're flooding that zone with bodies. We never did that. We were out there on the extremities, little chop inside, dink to the back post. We're literally a set-piece team in open play. That's where we were last year, creating open play set pieces. Now we've got far more diversity about that. He is critical to us. And by that, Gyokeres. And by that, I mean, we've got 2 forwards been out for basically a year. Yeah. So if you're relying on Havertz, we can't. You've been out for nearly a year, right? So Jesus the same. They're going to have physical dips. There's one guy that's a constant. Now Marino's out with an injury. He's critical. And not only is he critical, he's a completely different profile to the others. He does different things. So we've got our false nines aplenty, but we haven't got somebody like him. So I've stayed with him, even though the noise was saying you've got heavy feet, you've got jeans on, got Doc Martens on, whatever you want to say, right? But for me, I think he's been part of our diversity of how we play. And without him, we wouldn't be direct because we wouldn't go there.
How do you feel about Gyokeres?
I'm just trying to remember how many of those comments about Doc Martens and jeans were from my Twitter. I think I've only been frustrated by him when I've seen him in situations that I just don't think have suited him. I think he doesn't look as fast or as strong against Premier League defenders as he did in the clips from Portugal. I think his touch is really improving, right? The goals will be what people remember from that Sunderland game. There was a couple of first-time touches outside of his boot to keep the play going that were really nice. I've just been frustrated at times when we've used him in ways that I don't think suit him. We've played against back threes, he's started games, and I've gone, well, this doesn't suit him. But then, exactly as Clive said, what else are you going to do? We haven't had Kai.
Got no options.
Jesus, we've only just got Jesus back.
Well, I don't think he's had a lot of injuries over the last 2.5 years. I'm not sure that's the player it once was.
He's better off the bench, just to say it.
That's a polite way of saying it. He used to be a player you could go long to, JG, so I don't think he quite is anymore. But where would we be? And for all my frustrations at times with him, where would we be this season without him? With Gyokeres, without him, and I hear what you're saying. We've had to rely on him an awful lot, and I think he's had to be something that maybe he was never brought to be.
I don't think you have had to. I'll be honest. Look,
what could we have done, Marino?
No, you can play him. I don't think he's been good. That doesn't mean he can't be good. That's a completely different thing. I think he has been disappointing.
Yeah. So when he first came in, he wasn't fit. Then he got better and started to do really well. Then he broke down halfway through the Burnley game. Like, okay, little hamstring, no drama. Back in 2-3 weeks, comes back, and that's when he struggled the most.
Right.
When he came back, no, you can't go back to ground zero again. You've been here a while now. You were getting better. You just had your best game, and you came on. Because the data set's
getting bigger and bigger, isn't it?
Oh, no, you can't go back to ground zero. And we lost him for a while. We did, and that was the time when it got a little bit interesting, shall you say, the feedback he was getting. And then he started to get a bit better. Or the moment Kai Havertz came back, literally the moment he came back and Jesus came back, and there was an opportunity for him to rest midweek before he played at the weekend, then he looked a bit brighter and he's continued that way. And again, when he played against us, he wasn't like he plays in Portugal. We can see he played against Nicolas Otamendi, by the way, when he was in Portugal. That's the best centre-back he's going to play against. When he played against our centre-backs, our best centre-backs, in the peak of their form, he had them dancing. And I saw that, and I just can't forget it. And you don't lose that at 27. If he's 37, we'd have a conversation. You don't lose that. So something went amiss. It's about integration, adaptation to the group.
Top 2 inches, isn't it? A lot
physical, yeah. I look back at some of my comps. You know, you look at the comps when you're signing a player and they all look great. I look back at some comps of his link-up play. And it was exactly as it is now, which is 50-50. Right. You know, so I thought, I missed that when I was excited. You see what I mean? I missed that. Yeah. So his link-up play has always been average, but his shooting is really, really quite good.
So that's what I think is interesting. I see it not as a sort of style of player, but in terms of, I think my viewpoint on him, and let's see where it heads, is a bit like Darwin Núñez in the sense of everyone wants him to do well. Of course they do, as a striker, but there's a bit of a fee on him, and it's more important than that. He was supposed to be the guy, as you say. It's not been good enough up till now. It needs to get better, but I and I would imagine all Arsenal fans would hope to see that improvement in the next year. And with Darwin Núñez, there was the first year and you go, it's his first year. There was a second year and it was better, but some of the things that with all players that you kind of have and you're hoping they're doing well, there are little moments you go, oof, no, or yes. And I think that's what will be the story for Gyokeres. And with someone like Arteta and the players that he's playing with and him maybe getting a bit leaner, maybe there is that growth that can be there. With Darwin Núñez, there was a moment for Liverpool fans where they just went, nah, they sort of checked out. But that's football.
I'd say he has been good enough.
Really?
Top of the Premier League. Well, in the sense, we're top of the Premier League, we're top of the Champions League, we're in the other two competitions as well. Bear in mind, Darwin Núñez cost 80 million quid from Portugal.
Yeah.
This is Strand Larsen money. This is Johan Visser with half a knee money.
Yeah.
This is Alanga money.
This
right?
is a player
same thing.
as part of a group of forwards who was always there to supplement all of Marino, Jesus and Havertz. I think he's going to finish this season on probably about 13, 14 Premier League goals. Now, I looked at Darwin Núñez last year and I saw the similar frustrations from Liverpool fans and I wanted to say to them, you've just won the Premier League. This guy was part of a team that's just won the Premier League for you. Was he a star? No. Did it matter? Not really. So if we get to the end of this season and he's got 13 Premier League goals in a season where Kai didn't play football till February, Jesus will have started probably 10 Premier League games by the end of the year, and he's got a fairly respectable number of Premier League goals in a season, by the way, when no other strikers are scoring goals.
Yeah.
What's Sesko done? What's Voltemada doing now? I'm not going to sit here and call him a failure for 55 million quid. I don't know how you feel about it, Clive.
I don't think you can call him that. You shouldn't do that regardless, right? When it's someone's first season. I think to put out the sentence that he's been disappointing up until now, I think he has been disappointing. Personally.
I think you can't ignore that he's had struggles. You can't, right? And it's been like that. Burnley dipped down and he's on the way back. Take it from me, I don't know who watches him closely. No one is thinking he's going to improve. No one is thinking it. No one is thinking that we're going to improve offensively. I think we're going to improve massively offensively. And he'll be part of that story. Right? So this is the crunch time now. Another 3-4 weeks, the crunch time's coming up. And I think he's going to be really important to us. But I'm not worried. If he plays the last 30 or the first hour, I'm not worried at all.
And you're right. You're right in the sense of the depth thing. Like that is the thing that Arsenal are just flying with, like by having that depth in all those different areas, so that it doesn't matter. Yeah, again, it's one of those two things can be true thing where he's the striker and he was one of the star strikers coming into the league. Yeah. So all that history.
We should have never flown him to Singapore. Honestly, that's a bit of a. I don't think we should have done that. I think that framed it wrong.
Really?
I don't. I understand why you do it.
Should have hidden him away.
Not hidden him away, but I think this whole thing, there was all this Arsenal need a striker. When we had Kai Havertz last season, whose numbers when he plays number 9 for us are unbelievable. So I think he's been framed as something he doesn't need to be, which is this star number 9 who's going to get 50 goals a season. No, for 50 million quid, 55. If you can chip in with 13 Premier League goals, come on at this point, that point, multiple competitions, that's fine for us. Okay.
So there's a question I want you guys to answer, and I'm also going to explain why you've got to be so unlucky to win the league this year, in my opinion. Which one do you want first? Which one do you want first?
You go for it, mate.
You go, mate.
You want the unlucky bit, or do you want the question?
Go with the unlucky bit.
And the unlucky bit. So these are the stats. Apparently, according to Opta, they have Arsenal at 93.48% to win the league. Essentially, won it. Arsenal have 42.66 expected goals generated. I could run through all these, but I want to go to the defensive ones because this is why. Actually, one that's interesting, I think, is that 109 of the 358 shots are from set pieces. There has been all the talk about the set pieces. 15 of their goals, of the 46 goals, are from set pieces. So what's that? It's kind of like near a third. There's two ways of seeing that, right? First of all, there's the luck element of Arsenal having to be really unlucky to not win the league this year. For years now, you have scored goals from set pieces. That is important in football because some people go, oh, it's only a third. It's a third. And the games end 2-1. And games end 1-0. So it does matter. And you're not being lucky with these set pieces. You have built a team to be impressive in those fine margins. The defensive side of it is insane. And it's something that people won't talk about enough, really, because it's kind of boring. But the XG is 16.42 so far. What's this, after 25 games? Next best is Liverpool, 26 expected goals against. You concede 0.09 expected goals per shot, which is best in the league. You've only allowed 185 shots all season. That's less than 8 shots a game, which is it's nothing. And only 2.08 shots on target per 90. And you win more ground duels than anyone else. So when you're doing all those fine margins, and to go to maybe it's a Serena Wigman thing, maybe it's a NFL thing, maybe it's just Arteta looking for every advantage. Rugby. When you have the fortune of being Arsenal and then the intelligence to build the squad that's been built there, that's when these finishes become even more important. Because I think in women's football, if they're smart, the England team, for example, if it is, let's use that as an example, when they know they probably there's only 11 players on a pitch, but you can play 16. The use of those finishers, because of the depth of England amongst other female teams in the elite game, that is a huge advantage. And I think that, again, all these things that are maybe not the sexiest of things are so small but so hugely significant, in my opinion. And so when you're not giving away anything and you're really utilising the fine margins, I think you've got to be so unlucky to not win the league this year. Because the only way it'll happen, I know you don't like this, and the only way it can happen for me is you getting unlucky.
Maybe.
and that's the end of the podcast. But if we're being logical, I can do that. I'm not invested in the same way.
The way I look at it, defensively we've been good for the last 3 years, but this year we're better. We're definitely better, more mature. Duels and second balls, we're really sharp. Supermendy's added to that as well, really sharp. Again, you're controlling variables, which are hard to coach. But if you have people alert, I went to watch Arsenal train at the Emirates and doing their training drills. Trust me, you needed a degree to do this training drill. I mean, balls were flying at players from all directions, and they would just bring it down. Balls of different sizes were flying at them. And that was all about alertness, being alert to something that can happen that's uncontrolled. You're doing it, and it's incredible to see. They focus on every single margin. And so set pieces are a byproduct of territory. We all know the rules now. They're very good at it, but the psychological impact it has on the opponent is significant. So they are scared to give corners away. And when they give a corner away, if you're in the away ground, the crowd go, oh,
yeah,
no,
you can hear
like that.
Surely,
it goes like that. And so I know we're being defined by it. It's the easy label. I'm comfortable with it myself, because if you have something, why not use it?
It is
just use it. Just use it. But there are occasions when you think sometimes we're running out of ideas. Can we get a corner? And I don't really like that feeling. I'm being honest with you as an Arsenal person.
Maybe take the handbrake.
Can we get a corner? All right. So, but how many people are you watching your team and you're attacking late on and you get a corner that you cheer? It's just natural being a fan, right? You want that, don't you?
Yeah.
You want somebody to give you a chance to put a ball into an area without being pressured.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. And if you can maximise that margin, you should do. So we have a little trick there. Most of our delivery is really, really good. And why not use it?
Simon asked this. If Arteta sits down this summer, regardless of what Arsenal win or lose, and decides his next step is to make Arsenal play more entertaining attacking football, what would he need to do? What player types would he sign? And what instructions to the existing players might he change? I know that's a lot. So the question I'll kind of boil it down to is, do you think Arteta gives a bleep about being more entertaining in a future life when you've already won the league and you're trying to kind of move things on in terms of where football's going? What do you think? Or do you think he couldn't care less? Should he care?
Coming back to something I said earlier, I think a lot of this comes down to personnel as much as instruction. Clive was speaking there about our set pieces and how we use those. I was thinking about the City-Liverpool game yesterday. And when City were... when they went one down to that Szoboszlai free kick, they had that elite forward talent where it was get that ball towards Haaland, make sure those players are near enough to take shots, la-di-da. when Arsenal are in that situation, when something happens and the game doesn't go to our plan, and our plan is elite, but when it doesn't go to plan, I often feel myself leaning, where's that set piece? Come on. Get Gabriel up. Let's go to that.
It's Saka or set piece.
Saka or
set piece.
And this season, I think part of it is connections. I think it's been fitness, but we haven't had Saka as much there. So I think it's about just buying another player who is the third option. Saka, set piece.
Ideally with an S.
I like Bradley Barker. You might like Julian Alvarez. Whatever it is, I don't think it's necessarily a case of Arteta's going to change his instructions and so I don't think it's that necessarily. I think the tactics are evolving constantly throughout the season. Even I think that is more about personnel, and I think it's not just about what Arteta wants; it's what the team wants. I see us when we're struggling for a goal. A player will go down injured. They go straight over to the coaching staff, right? Now I think about last season when Liverpool won the title. It wasn't that. It was give the ball to Mo Salah. So I personally, I think it's more personnel, and I wonder if that's what we're going to be looking for in the market this summer, is a forward who's got that ability. Give him the ball, he's going to do something.
I think every team had its own default. So Liverpool used to default to their right-hand side. We default to our right-hand side. When I say default, I mean default under pressure. Under pressure, where do you go? Who do you really, really trust? 10 minutes to go in the game. Who do you want the ball to go to? And for us, that is Bukayo Saka. He can always create something. If we had a couple more like that, where you feel really confident. So Kai's rolling into that feeling right now. Trossard's done fantastic on left-hand side.
Yeah, we haven't spoken.
Eze will establish himself in that position for me next season. But we just need a little bit more certainty in offensive areas. At the moment, we're a collective team, so we are very much a pattern team. We play on pattern and controlling the uncontrollables of the second ball, etc. Duels, 1-2, in, mini transition, cross, goal. Right? So we've got speed, we've got power, and we've got patterns of play. And we've got dribblers that threaten fullbacks and destabilise teams. So we have a lot of things, but we don't have that star thing, per se. You know? Because Saka's a really good attacker, but he's a really good defender as well. He's an all-round footballer. And so we don't have that star thing. But I'm okay with it. I generally am okay with it. When you look at Arsenal right now, sometimes when everyone says to me, you're really good, I think, yeah, we're okay. But really, are we? Why are we okay? I ask those questions all the time.
I saw Alex Moneypenny the other week, and he was like, "This game, we're good. We're good. I think. We're good.
We're really good." Funny, isn't it? Then I spoke your mate Doogie. You know Doogie. He sort of said at the weekend, it's impossible to even make a chance against Arsenal. Yeah. And I thought that's how he felt as a Sunderland man. I thought, we just expect it, you know. But that's how he felt. It was impossible to even make a chance. Yeah. And if you have that feeling over somebody, that wears on you. And then you go back to what we've done, which is add the depth. So you got to beat us twice. Literally, you got to beat us twice. If you think you got us, we can normally bring somebody on to get you again. They may not be a star, but they play to our pattern, they play to our collective way, and they're part of the system. And I think, for me, it's working. It's our way. Yeah. It's our way. We haven't got a Salah. We haven't got a Haaland, you know, but it's our way. And we should be comfortable with it, and I absolutely am.
It's interesting as well, like Arsenal, in terms of the history of Arsenal as well. You think of, you know, the team in the 90s that, you know, before Wenger, like that was 1-0 to the Arsenal. You know, they were built on brilliant defences. So, like, it's funny how that.
If you overlay the Invincible team, funny enough, on what we're doing right now, obviously the top two, Bergkamp and Henry, they're special, right? So we haven't got an Henry, so that kills it. But everything else, the way we play in those pairs, is very similar to what we have right now. Very similar to what we have, and they won it, didn't they? They won it, and
they did. Final question, but possible ripple effect before this. Perry K says, if we win the league, should I call my firstborn Mikel? So that could be a ripple effect there, firstborn child. If it is your firstborn, regardless, congratulations. Sorry to make it a dampener maybe, but let's see. Mikel Arteta, there's a lot of talk around him and a lot of outside noise again, and that's why I wanted to get on the inside of that. For Arsenal fans, as two people kind of aware of the Arsenal fan base, how does the Arsenal fan base feel about Arteta broadly, and then how do you feel about Mikel Arteta? Go on, Jack. You go.
Oh, I don't want to speak on behalf of a fan base.
What do you see? What do you feel like you see and hear and feel?
Do you know? I think it's broadly very positive. I mean, there aren't many clubs in Europe who one of the songs they go to most in the ground begins with their manager's name, right? I think we can see where we've come from. I think we can see where we are. And I think more mature fans would look to, you know, you were saying there for a long time it was 1-0 to the Arsenal. Then I feel like we went into this era where we did have these stars that, like Clive was talking about, it was stop Van Persie, you stop Arsenal, stop Henry, you stop Arsenal, stop Fabregas. It's stop Arteta and you stop Arsenal now. And I think people do appreciate that. I think a little bit of the negative reaction to Arteta, if I'm being honest, I think it's boredom, and it's not because the tactics are boring. He's been there a long time.
Yeah.
In modern terms, this is quite a long reign. I suspect he's probably the second in the top 3 longest reigning managers in the Premier League right now.
Yeah.
Across Europe, that's kind of the thing. So I think if there is any negative feeling towards the manager, it's to do with it being a lot of the same thing for quite a long time. So that's my view of how people see him. For me personally, I think as a coach, he's
second. So Guardiola's or Simon Weaver of Harrogate Town in League 2.
Right, wow. 16, so this is in the Football
16
League.
16 years. But
wow.
in the Prem, you got Pep for 9 years, Nick coming up to 10 years, and Mikel Arteta 6 years, 47 days.
Yeah, so it's a long time. For me personally, I think he's one of the best tactical coaches in the world. I think in terms of that next step, if we were to buy a star, what do we do? I still remember the Aubameyang interview when he went to Barcelona, and Aubameyang was saying all these young players, they'll do what he says, but us old players, these old players who weren't doing an awful lot for us sometimes, by the way. I think there'll be evolution. I also don't think it will last forever. There's a reason managers don't stay in jobs that long. There's a reason he's one of the longest serving, and I personally think there's probably about 3 more years of this to go. And I think what he'll be remembered as, hopefully as a manager who's won things, but also as a manager who moved this club from a club who were hovering around 8th and could have gone anywhere into a club who's now being seen around Europe as a template to follow.
Clive, thoughts?
Yeah, well, you said they're seen around Europe as a template to follow. And I think there lies the struggle, because in the UK, they don't want to follow him. They are far more comfortable with Pep being the benchmark. Right, so, and Arteta as somebody that could be seen as taking the game somewhere where they don't want it to go. Regarding the stop-start nature of football today, he's almost like the flag bearer for things that are seen as quite negative. And despite the fact that we scored the second most goals, conceded the least goals, won the most games, blah, 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 it doesn't really matter. We win 4-0, no one even looks at it. Oh, they should win there. Don't look at the style of the goals, You know, Jamie Hamilton would go, right? Yeah. I was talking to him online the other day, and he was talking about diagonal play and central access. And he said, but you need to have a number 9 here. So I messaged him and said, Jamie, look at the goal we scored at Leeds, number 4. We've actually got a number 9 in there. He actually finished the move off. And he went, I'm picking him a little bit, but actually no one thought about the beauty of that goal.
Yeah.
They just expect us to win the game. Right, so it's easier to label a set piece goal or a second phase set piece goal, and so they're not looking, but that's okay. I am really comfortable with this. In fact, I want to, and we need to embrace this. And Arteta now, first interview, you can see that man has pure leadership. He is an elite leader, right? So he has ripped that club apart completely. He controls every detail. My biggest worry that he is turning into a single point of failure. He's a young man that's obsessive about his football, obsessive about everything to do with the club. Every human being has a limit. And I worry what would happen if he wasn't to have the validation of winning. Would he need to rest? That's my only secret worry that I have, but as long as he's here and the club is supporting, which they do in every facet, I think he'll be fine for the next couple of years. But I think he deserves to have that medal. When I looked at Man City yesterday, they got a young, bright centre-back, Kuzanov playing there. He's quite quick, he's raw. I look at Saliba playing, 2-3 years older than him. I'm thinking, in the world, surely Saliba's got to get a league medal before Kuzanov gets it. And surely because, and I think because I felt Liverpool in the Pep era, in Klopp's era, They deserve 2 league titles.
Yeah.
They got one. They got one last year.
Get what you get.
They deserved it. They deserved that title last year. You look at the last 3-4 years of this Premier League, I think Arsenal deserve 1 league title.
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't got to diminish it for us, who from the outside world. We might actually enjoy it. Can we just enjoy it if we do get there? By Wednesday night after Fulham, they might be 3 points behind us. This is not a given, but I do think that we've earned our stripes to get here. We've taken a game a different direction, and I think we might actually deserve it this time.
Okay.
Can I hypothesise just something quickly before
Please
we go?
do.
Clive said something there about how rival fans are maybe more comfortable with Guardiola being the most successful manager in the Premier League, and people liked Klopp. I wonder if something about the negative reaction from other fans, and I don't know whether you'd agree, that's kind of a thing. People don't really like Arteta. I wonder if it's because he's actually closer to a British coach than we expect him to be, and he's actually showing us who we are. Guardiola promised Premier League fans tiki-taka, this continental style of football that we didn't have here. Now we've got it. Yeah, Klopp came in, Jurgen press, running at 100 miles an hour, something we hadn't seen before. Arteta's shown us something we actually had a long time ago.
Yeah,
and
just
as Arsenal drift
back,
back, to loop back to the start of the conversation, to 2 number 9s, to 4-4-2 out of possession, to being good at long balls and duels. Maybe the reason that rival fans don't like looking at Arteta is because he's actually almost a mirror to what the Premier League has always been.
I don't know. I think I've always said I think Arteta's more David Moyes than Pep, and people get annoyed at that. But I think you've decided to take that as a negative. Like, and all the elements of steel in a team is something that Arteta, likes. You can see that in his team. At the same point, David Moyes' team, like David Moyes' great best Everton team, they were brilliant to watch. Like they pulled us apart, but people don't like. It's a status issue.
A more fashionable comparison is Clive's one: a 4-4-2 team that were good at duels, good defensively, with the Invincibles.
Yeah, and if anything,
not having a David Moyes thing.
I actually think one of the first games.
He tried to sit in it. He tried to sit.
One of the first games I remember watching was Brazil '82 versus Italy, and that Brazilian team, I loved them. My heart broke when Italy won that game. Right? Maybe we are the Italian team. We are quite Italian in what we do and how we play and how we respect every phase of the game. And for those people that like Brazil, you're never going to like Italy. I cried when Rossi scored that hat-trick, right? So Brazil was it. So that's okay. We have to accept it. This is who we are. But we can layer on top of this. And we can go again.
I think that's the interesting thing here. And with football, what it is, there is going back to, Jamie said this recently on a pod, and I think it's where I'm at as well. There's the physical capabilities are obviously clearly important, right? And I think one of Arsenal's biggest strengths is your right back and left back could play in centre midfield or centre back. Yeah. Or up top.
Up front, as they often do.
Havertz could play in a double pivot if he had to.
Yeah.
He could play, you've got so many of those players that can play in so many different positions, so many kind of hybrid guys, but they all I remember doing this once. I think we played Brighton away, and I went, how many of these are 6 foot? And there was about 7 of your team or something were 6'2". You're all exactly 6'2". And so that's one, in terms of filling that up to the brim, if you think of Football Manager and you have you're looking to try and have 20 pace, 20 this, 20 that. In terms of that physicality, size, all those things, the 20s are there. But in football, there's that, and then there's the beautiful bits as well. And I think it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think there could be a building upon. I hope so, because I think that's where that's where you want a bit of utopia and art within it all.
It will come.
Keep it fun.
It will come back, and it's there now, but it's just there in smaller doses. If you just think about it now, right, James, when you analyse football matches, these coaches now have so much information about the other team.
Yeah.
They know everything you're going to do. So patterns are read, completely read. The people who are what I call pattern interrupters, the ball's going one direction and they chop it and go back the other way and go same side. Eze does that for us, right? So people that interrupt the patterns, that take away the analysts or the opposition. What are they doing that for? They don't normally do that. They're going to come into it.
Have to.
Right? So I always go back to my IQ statement. It's those people that can feel it when the pattern needs to be interrupted and something else needs to happen, because that's on offer. Right? So you can have your analysis, you can have your clips of your opponent. You know your floor has got to be around half, compact, physical play to make sure we don't concede. But when it comes down to it, you have to create and score. How are you going to do that? By going exactly where they think you're going to go, or by doing something slightly different? And this is it. This is where we're heading. And that's why you saw Trossard on the right wing in the first 5 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
At the weekend. I didn't expect it.
So, just to finish up, we've got a best case ripple and we've got a worst case ripple. We'll do worst case first. Arsenal dropped points against both Tottenham, Chelsea, back-to-back on the 22nd of February and the 1st of March. Put it in your calendars, guys. Nerves start to hit after a few poor Premier League results. Jacob takes to Twitter. Has a go at Gyokeres. Resulting in a nervy EFL Cup final, which Man City win. With City now on their tails of the league and just stamping their authority by winning the EFL Cup. Arsenal lose to City at the Etihad, which puts City level on points. Nerves continue to increase. And Arsenal bottle it. Sorry, I had to say it once. In the league. And that negativity carries over to other competitions, and the club ceases to exist after a trophyless season. Or finish with this one for Arsenal fans. If you're still with us, if you are still with us, go check out Jacob. Jacob, tell them all about your podcast and everything that you do.
I do a comedy podcast called the Screen Rock Podcast, and I tour as a stand-up comedian. If you want to hear me talk more rubbish about football, I also do the Arsenal Opinion
It's brilliant.
podcast as well.
Jacob's amazing, so go check him out and support him. And Clive, where can people find you?
I'm on the Arsenal Vision podcast primarily, and a few other little bits and pieces. But yeah, that's where I do my thing.
That's it. And on X for a bit of calmness, as you've noticed. So here you go. Best case, right? Big smiles, please. Arsenal win the EFL Cup. First trophy for Arteta since the FA Cup in the 1920 season, disregarding Community Shields. Arsenal then play City in the Premier League 4 weeks later, carrying that momentum from the EFL Cup win and beating them at the Etihad, which could make the title as good as theirs by that point. By wrapping up the league early, Arsenal can now rotate with their huge amount of depth that they have in their squad that Arteta's built and put more focus on their Champions League, FA Cup, and they're going deep in both those tournaments and perhaps even winning their first ever Champions League along with the FA Cup to complete quadruple.
Oh, dear.
Smash that like button if you're an Arsenal fan. Hit all the buttons that you need to hit. Follow the podcast. I've actually got Isaac Hayden, who was at Arsenal.
I remember.
He's now at QPR. We're going to do a podcast with him. So if you're an Arsenal fan, stick around for those podcasts, which will come out soon. Got loads of amazing guests coming up, and we've just had 2 here as well. So please follow the podcast. Thanks so much. Have a great week.